Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited about this series of videos where over the next 9 videos, I am going to chat with a member of our goal setting community about their Enneagram type and how it relates to their goals. So I'm gonna give a quick intro to what is the Enneagram and what does it mean? What am I gonna talk about in these videos? I'm gonna plop this intro in front of each of the videos in case you only click on the one that is your type. But if you are watching more than one of these Enneagram videos, click the timestamp in the description to jump to the chat part of the video. So let's start with what is the Enneagram. The Enneagram is a personality test that breaks people up into 9 distinct personality types. And just like other personality tests, each of us have a little bit of all 9 types in us somehow, but the Enneagram pulls forward which one is your core desire, which one is dominant over the rest, your core desires, your core fears, what really gets you going. And again, just like every other personality test, there is so much information out there, and everything you read, every book, every article is going to give you different information about the different types. And so there might be some things I share that you completely relate to and some things I don't relate to, and then there might be some things in the other type videos that you relate to as well. I also want to make sure you know there is a lot of information related to the Enneagram that we're not going to get into in these videos. There are subtypes, there are wings. Wings just mean that you have a secondary Enneagram that is one of the 2 types next to yours. You do actually lean to both of them, but you usually have a stronger one. So if you are very interested in how this can impact your goals, I would encourage you to watch not just your type, but also the 2 next to your type that could be your wings. But we, again, are not going to go into that, and I'm not chatting with each individual about their wing type. I also want to remind you, I'm not an expert. This is not my area of expertise. I did do a lot of research and preparation for these videos, and most of the information that I am sharing is coming from a couple of places. So the first one is this book that I read. It's called, the lighting is not totally working. It's called The Honest Enneagram by Sarah Jane Case, who I also love following on Instagram. I read about all of the types in this book and used a lot of it in my conversations with everybody, as well as this one, which is Take Care of Your Type by Christina Wilcox. So a lot of what I reference can be found in these books if you're looking for more information. I also follow a lot of great Instagram accounts that share a lot of both fun and helpful things related to the Enneagram. And so over the course of the videos, I will pop up some fun things, and you'll see the Instagram handle captioned at the bottom, and I will leave the Instagram accounts linked down below as well. Those are sort of the ongoing places that I get my Enneagram information and just learn a little bit more about myself. So the last thing I want to let you know is as we go through each of the chats, I'm going to be talking about that type as a whole, some of the strengths of that type and how it relates to goals, and then some of the struggles that that type will have and how to overcome that to help you achieve your goals. One of the biggest takeaways in all the research I did for these videos and as it relates to the Enneagram is we're not trying to change ourselves. We're trying to learn how we operate and what drives us and how to utilize that to achieve our goals. And that one of the main reasons why we do struggle to achieve our goals is that we try to do it like everybody else, right? Maybe you watch videos of people on YouTube or follow them on Instagram and you try to achieve your goals in the exact same way that they are, but you're a totally different personality type than them. And there is a quote from one of the books that I don't want to mess up. It says, "One of the biggest mistakes I see my clients make is that they try to get the results they want using the tactics of someone else." So at the end of the day, I hope that these videos help you learn a little bit more about yourself and some tactics that can help you achieve your goals based on your Enneagram personality type. All right, hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off by having you introduce yourself. So if you wouldn't mind sharing where you live, what you do for work during the day, and what you do for fun.
So my name is Brianne. I am 28 tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, your birthday's tomorrow?
My birthday's tomorrow.
Happy early birthday. That's so exciting.
Thank you. I live in Ontario, Canada. For work, I am a PhD student in child clinical psychology. So what that looks like right now, I mean, it's been a lot of things from home because of the pandemic. Like I've only started seeing clients in person over this past year. It was very weird to like learn therapy in the virtual setting. Like I was doing therapy over Teams all the time. That's how I learned to do therapy, which was like quite strange. And then to transition to pandemic therapy, like in healthcare settings, people still wear masks.
Right.
So it's also very weird. I can't decide which is worse. It's weird not to be in the room with a person,
but not
and
to
it's very weird not to see their face. Like you're expecting to read off of that
right
when you're doing therapy, and like all the stuff that you would normally think about with body language out the window. All I can think about is facial expressions if it's virtual. So like it's very weird. For fun, I mean, people on this channel probably won't be surprised that mostly what I do for fun is decorative planning, scrapbooking, etc. I have a ludicrous amount of stickers and washi. So
Yeah, you're definitely
pretty
not
much
alone
no.
in that realm. All right, if you are comfortable sharing, I would love for you to share a couple of your top goals for 2022.
Sure. I'm going to get my planner so that I make
Okay.
sure I remember them. So I guess my top goals for 2022, like one of the really big things has been my husband and I adopted our little girl. Technically, I guess she was born last year, but she was born like December 30th.
Right.
So one of the big goals, I'm not taking time off work because I work from home.
Right.
So one of the big goals has been kind of figuring out how to balance baby time and work time, and figure out how to cut enough stuff out of my work life that I'm actually giving her some good time. One of my goals is always working on taking time for fun. We'll probably talk about this later, but I tend to be fine at taking on many, many goals and bad at prioritizing time to do nothing. Or
oh wow, you like are
my hobbies.
Totally reading what I'm going to talk about later.
Yeah, I did not get the power sheets this year, but I have had the power sheets in the past. So I literally used the power sheets and like wrote out all of the power sheet stuff
Oh my God,
in the
that's
little notebook
amazing.
so that I could still do it. So my goals, my word of the year was brave, and then my idea is like to meet life with courage. So my goals are about spending time with my daughter, spending time with my husband, being present with my friends and family. Like I said, a lot of kind of relational type goals. Then also doing some things to strengthen mind and body, remaining dedicated to my career, and doing more of what I love.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. Before we jump into any of the details about the type 8, I want you to comment below if you're also a type 8. We're going to kick it off with just like a fun slide that's got a little thing about each type. So this is Enneagram types and an amusement park. So the type 8 says the one who does everything in one day.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds accurate. I would probably have like written out exactly what things I was going to do in what order.
I love that. I love that so much. And as we go through everything today, I mentioned this in the intro as well. There might be things that you relate to, but there might be things you don't relate to. We all have a little bit of every type within us. It's just which one is the most dominant, which one drives us the most. And so there might be some things today that we talk about if for you or for anybody who's a type 8 that's like, that doesn't really apply to me. And then there might be some things that you're like 100%, that is me for sure. My first question is if you do remember how you discovered the Enneagram and how you determined what type you were.
Yeah, I remember exactly how I discovered the Enneagram. I was starting my master's and I had found like a faith group on campus that has like a grad student program, which is very rare. Like most of the clubs and things on campus are for undergrads. So I found the one place that seemed to have a grad student program, and I reached out to them early and actually started going to that group in the summer before I started my master's in advance. And they were reading a book on the Enneagram. And I'm in psychology. I was like, this is crap. Like personality tests are like really like poorly validated. I guess I'll show up and do this because I want to hang out with other people, but like mostly I'm going to argue about like how dumb I think it is. So that's how I discovered Enneagram. I don't think I'd really heard about it before then.
Okay.
In my memory, I did some tests, and tests give me usually like something close between like a 6 and an 8.
Okay.
And so I was like, I don't know, because I'm an extremely anxious person. So that made sense to me. But I also like to start arguments, obviously, because I said I was going to go
anyway. You went to argue.
Yeah. And then I think I read the book. I read some other things to start figuring out my type. And one of the things, I think the slide you showed is from the person where I read this, but she did like, I think it was like Enneagram's reactions to first hearing about the Enneagram.
Okay.
And the 8 was like, that's stupid. No, like it was something like that. And I was like, oh,
That's me.
Okay, well, I know which one is me now because that was exactly my reaction.
Yes. Yeah, the slide, that's one of the Instagram accounts I love to follow related to the Enneagram. It's Enneagram and Coffee.
Yeah.
And she also wrote a book.
Yeah, I have not read it, but it's on my Amazon, like buy it eventually list.
To read list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've mentioned this before as well. Yes, you can take all the tests, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's just reading these things, learning about them that help you figure out which type you really are.
Yeah.
All right. Couple more little fun things. There's 3 slides of things that Enneagrams love, Enneagram types love. So the 8 says a new statement piece.
Interesting.
Do you feel like that's true?
I feel like I'm not especially fashionable, so that feels like a stretch, but certainly like I'll like put a lot of thought into buying like one particular thing, I guess. Like,
okay,
for me, a new statement piece probably looks like a t-shirt with some kind of like aggressive slogan.
But you're putting thought into the pieces that you're thought is probably what it means. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one is meaningful conversations over coffee.
Don't love coffee, but do love coffee dates. So I feel like yes.
So what do you drink on coffee dates?
Well, I like iced coffee, but also like usually I would drink like Diet Coke.
Okay.
That's where I get my caffeine, to be honest.
Okay. Love that. The last one here is a bold lip. Kind of goes along that same fashionable line.
Yeah, it's like if I don't wear makeup, but if I did, then I do like go pretty all out with makeup if I do. I think it's just about like doing things to the extreme, which is accurate.
Right. And the statement and being kind of loud and like,
yeah.
So that kind of leads us into the overview of the type 8, which is known as the challenger, as you keep mentioning, going in somewhere to argue. So the basic desires are to take charge of their life, to be strong and defend themselves and others. Basic fears being at the mercy of someone else or being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then ultimate motivators, demonstrating their strength, maintaining self-reliance, and overcoming weakness. It's a lot about being strong and being kind of in control almost.
Yeah. As you will notice, as I said, my word of the year is brave, and my statement is meet life with courage.
Yeah.
So that fits.
I love that. I love that so much.
And it has been strength in the past.
Okay. You've had that as your word of the year before?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. So let's jump into talking about some of the strengths. This is a quote from that book from the Instagram we were talking about, where she says, it's not honest to pretend that we don't have flaws, but it's also not honest to pretend we don't have strengths. And we tend to immediately go to the negative, to the flaws, to what's wrong with my type, instead of let's focus on what's great about each type first. So the first strength that always popped out at me when I was researching for the type 8 is driven and goal-oriented. It naturally, like, you just want to do more and be goal-oriented. Do you feel like that's true?
Yeah, I think that's true. Like, I'm in my PhD now, as I had said, and that's pretty much, I know for lots of people, it's like figuring out what you want to do. I entered university and I knew that I wanted to go to grad school, and I didn't know what I wanted to go to grad school yet, but I already knew that was the path. And truthfully, one of the reasons that I chose the PhD program that I did was because I went to like a seminar about the different psychology PhD programs, and this is the hardest one to get into. And I was like, okay, well, obviously, then that's where we're going.
That's very type 8, I feel like, to be like, well, the hardest one to get into, that's the one I'm going to go to.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming to some level, it feels like you're always thinking about goals. Like that's always at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like that for sure.
All right. Next strength is focus on efficiency. What I read about is that type 8s are always like, what's the fastest way that I can get this done?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I feel like one of the ways that comes out is I like end up putting myself on an excessive number of committees and stuff. And I'll just be sitting there like, can we please get to the point? Like, why are we arguing about this stupid thing? Which usually means that I try to get to be in charge of whatever said committee is so that I can run it and we can go.
Yeah. Well, that's ironic because the next one I have here is that you're a natural leader. And that is, yeah, I feel like the type 8s are always the first one to volunteer to lead whatever group or committee or whatever it is. But then also with that is the desire to stand up for injustice and for like the underdog.
Yeah, the natural leader thing is a problem. That gets me into a lot of trouble because I sign up to run all the things and then I have no time left.
Yeah, so what I have written down here is to, instead of volunteering to be the leader at every little thing, right? Pick one, pick something you're really excited about, invested in, and like be the best leader for that one thing. And then kind of either, if you can't handle not being the leader, then maybe it's not participating in those other ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not untrue. I have a thing that I do every semester where I list out all of my commitments and then like I green, yellow, or red highlight them. Like red is like, you should definitely get rid of this. Yellow is you should think about it. And green is I definitely want to keep it. The problem is that a lot of things get highlighted green.
I wonder if, first off, that sounds like a fantastic system for anybody who's feeling overwhelmed. It doesn't even have to be like commitments committees. It could literally be like everything in your life. And maybe you don't feel like there's a lot of red, and maybe red could mean like I could outsource this or I could ask for help. Like it's something that I don't have to be doing. And it could be that you look at it that way. Maybe you change your like how you evaluate them, right? Like maybe red means not right now, but like someday I could join, or red, or that's what yellow means, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like, I could do this on a smaller scale, because that's part of it too. Like maybe I could just do a small, again, that goes back to not always being the leader, right? Do this on a small scale, just participate instead of like run part of it. All right. So before we move into the struggles of the type 8, I want to pop up this quote that says the core goal of using the Enneagram, and really any personality test, is to grow into your best, most authentic self. So we're not trying to change you. We're not trying to take these struggles and be like, we can't have any of these. We can't have any issues. It's really about what are the things we need to know and remember in order to work with our struggles that we all are going to have based on whatever type we are. So you kind of already said this a little bit, but the first struggle I have for the type 8 is that you push yourself to the limits, and you're going to fill up your cup as high as you can fill it, and sometimes overflowing.
Yeah, I think like pushing yourself to your limits feels like an understatement. I think usually it's like, how far past the limit can I go before I like truly fall off the cliff?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I reined it in a little bit. I think one of the things to remember here with this struggle is that saying no is not a weakness. Saying no is not a bad thing. In fact, most of the time when you're saying no, you are in turn saying yes to something else. And it's just figuring out the priorities for you. And whether this is goals or work commitments, life, whatever it is, but just starting to get comfortable with saying no.
Yep, that's the goal.
You're like, I know this. It's not helping. Like, I get it. That's the answer. I think one of the maybe actionable things that you could try, or any type 8s, if you feel like you struggle with this, is start on a smaller scale, right? Don't try and like say no to being like the leader of some big group. Start with saying no to like one thing, right? One little, I couldn't even come up with an example, but like start by saying no to like one coffee date, or one, like, let me pick your brain. Like say no to one little thing and then build that no muscle, and then be better about saying no later.
Yeah, I find it's like, if I'm going to be able to say no to something, it has to be like before I'm into the commitment, because once I'm in, I'm not backing out. So I have to like get good at, if something ends, then we cannot pick something up to replace the thing that ended immediately, because maybe I need more space in my life and not a thing to replace the thing I just got rid of. Especially if I get rid of something because it really stresses me out, and then I'll be like, oh, now I have time to do.
Now I need to fill it
with
something else.
No, I don't.
No, right. You don't always need to fill it. And then I think it goes back to the conversation we kind of already had, which is not always doing everything to the extreme, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just participating and not being the leader, or maybe it's donating instead of actually volunteering your time. All right. This definitely leads us into number 2, which you also brought up, which is ignoring rest.
Oh, jeez.
You're like, yeah, okay.
Well, actually a deeply unfun story about this, I guess. So I had undiagnosed sleep apnea for several years. Eventually someone found out because I was like riding in a car with a family friend who's a doctor, and I fell asleep, and she's like, I lost count of how many times you stopped breathing. Like, you need to go get this checked out. So I went and got it checked out. And at this point, I'm still like pushing myself to the limit. I'm like, well, like I don't really sleep that well. I like sleep on the couch now because I need to sleep sitting up because I don't sleep properly when I'm lying down, falling asleep during the day all the time, still like getting ready to do my master's, but falling asleep during the day all the time. And then I had my sleep test finally. And they woke me up after like 2 hours to put like the CPAP on because I think they felt like it was unethical to even have me like complete this sleep test without sleep therapy. And then it turned out that I was waking up an average of 3 times a minute. So 180 times an hour is how often I was not breathing, which explained why I was tired all the time. And
Oh my gosh.
it takes forever to get that sleep test. So I didn't get that sleep test until I was done the first semester of my master's. And I was just like sleeping during the day, waking up and spending like 2 hours doing an assignment, going back to sleep. And sometimes I was also working night shifts. So rest is bad, or I'm bad at it.
Well, yes, it also sounds like you had some other issues as well physically with your body's ability to rest.
For sure.
So there's the time to rest, and then there's the quality of the rest. And you were probably not doing well with either of them. As a type 8, you weren't prioritizing the time to rest. And then when you were resting, it was a quality rest.
Yeah. And I think the point that comes out for me there is that I didn't do anything about it.
Right.
I just like kept going.
Do you feel like that's something you do a better job of now?
Yeah.
Okay. Minus the fact that you have a newborn.
Yeah, well, she's actually a really good sleeper. And since being someone who had undiagnosed sleep apnea, I'm like pretty aggressive about protecting my sleep. So I definitely do better with that now.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think the other big reminder here, and whether you need this or another type 8 needs to hear this, rest doesn't always mean like sleep and doing nothing. There are lots and lots of types of rest. So I read the book Burnout, which I mentioned in other places, is kind of, I don't love the structure of the book. It feels a little bit all over the place, but there are some really good pockets of information in that book. And one of the big takeaways I took from it was the different types of rest and how it's not just about sleep. It's not just about sitting on the couch watching Netflix, but there are other things that we can consider rest that are still going to rejuvenate us. So it's figuring out, A, what does that mean for you? And for you or anybody else, maybe reading that book is a good start, but what does rest mean to you? And then B, how can you make time for it? And as a type 8, it's likely not going to look like massive stretches of time, right? You're not going to set aside like a whole day on a weekend to just rest. Yeah. So it's, where can you find those little bitty pockets of time? Where can you schedule 15 minutes of rest, 20 minutes of rest? And it will add up.
Yeah. For me, that baby actually helps with that because
I'm sure
that's like time where I'm like, okay, I'm going to hang out with the baby. And then that's rest. And I can chalk it up as an obligation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that the book talks about that. Like, depending on what your, preferences are and your personality are, like being with friends is a type of rest. And that is something else that's likely fulfilling you in other ways too. Working out is actually a type of rest because it's mental rest. Your brain's taking a break where your body is working. And so you can check off other goals for those type 8s and also for type 3s out there while also getting in rest.
Yeah.
Last struggle that I found a lot of type 8s is inflexibility. They don't like to change it up.
Yeah, I mean, I usually think that my way is probably a good way of doing things.
Okay.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. And you're probably not wrong most of the time. And I think that's definitely one form of inflexibility, like doing it your way. I think another thing is with time, like being flexible with your time, and maybe having a baby has kind of helped with this a little bit, like being able to be more flexible with like, you're probably not following as rigid of a schedule as you were before.
Yeah. Yeah. Having the baby helps. And like having the sleep apnea actually helped as well. I learned a lot of self-compassion because of not sleeping and having to just kind of fill in the brief moments where I had some time where I was awake. Like I learned, I guess, like how much you can do in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Another big like thing you can try here for you or any other type of 8 is loose flexibility is what I like to call it. Like you have, these are the things I'd like to get to today. It doesn't have to happen in this exact order. It doesn't have to happen at this exact time. Even if, going back to the strength of it being the most efficient option, that if something else comes up, it's being flexible and going with the flow and adjusting, as opposed to just saying like, well, if it's not going to happen the way I planned, then I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good reminder. Also, sometimes remembering that change is not a bad thing, and that sometimes things getting changed or something, having to be flexible with something can sometimes be a good thing.
Sometimes.
You're like, okay, so maybe sometime, maybe like 1 out of 10 times, maybe if that. All right, another fun, just little pop-up are common thoughts of each Enneagram type. So the 8 one is, how can I take control of this situation?
Like, I think that's true, but I think that it's kind of like an interesting way of wording it, because I feel like I don't go into a situation and be like, oh, I want to be in charge. I go into a situation and I'm like, oh, this isn't getting done well enough and I could fix it. And I feel like that feels like similar to lots of other things I've read about 8s. Like, it's not that I always want to be in charge, and I find it like extremely relaxing if I'm in like a setting where someone is taking charge and doing a really good job of it. Then I'm like, cool, I don't need to do it. But I tend to feel like if things are not going well, that I should try and fix it.
Yeah, I feel that. Sometimes I'm wondering if sometimes I feel like I identify as an 8 sometimes. But I am for sure a 3, but there are things like that where I'm like, if somebody else is in control and they're doing a great job and I don't feel like I need to take over, it's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, that is all that I have for the type 8. I wanted to give you the opportunity, if there is any other goal-related thing that you feel like you struggle with, or a question that you would want to ask that other type 8s might also want to ask.
Well, I mean, I don't know where other type 8s are kind of in their process. Okay, so you saw that lots of my goals are kind of focused on spending time with family and friends, taking time off to do things. I think what is difficult is sometimes when you're working on showing yourself a lot more self-compassion and not feeling like you have to get everything done on your checklist, how you strike that balance between like pushing yourself, because if I don't, then I really won't kind of like take the rest and take time off if I let myself off the hook every time, but also like keeping the self-compassion of not like beating myself up every time I don't do something that I said I would do.
So I think one of the ways that you could work on that is putting smaller, just making things smaller, right? So instead of, again, going to the extreme and pushing yourself to the limit and thinking like, well, if I'm going to work on this goal, then it needs to be super, and like I have to be the best and do the extreme version of it. How can I maybe make it smaller so that I'm giving myself the space and to rest and to have time off, but while still accomplishing something I want to accomplish? I think that's one option. I think another option is think about what is taking up your time instead and put limits on that. So instead of trying to make like these relationship type goals, like that be the goal and make it concrete, it's like, okay, well, what's taking up the time or the space instead of the relationship? And it's like, how can I put a cap on that? And so, some of us are setting goals at like a minimum, right? I need to do this for a minimum of 10 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day. Maybe for you, it's a maximum. Like, don't do this for more than 15 minutes, because then you're going to not spend time with somebody that you want to spend time with.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I've been sort of working on doing that and haven't put that into my goals, and that would probably be a good way to do it. Get some credit for, like, I've been trying to restrict my workday to an actual workday, which again is easier because I feel guilty if I don't go hang out with the baby, so that helps.
Right. But I think, and with any goal, we're not going to go from one extreme to the other tomorrow. We're not going to wake up and just cut it all off. And so it's start with where you're at. So if where you're at is working 12-hour days, and I'm not saying that it is, I pulled a number, then maybe the next month, the goal is, okay, I'm going to work 11.5-hour days, right? I'm going to increase it a little bit or decrease it a little bit to make time for something else. And that's my new goal. And slowly work our way back to whatever it is we're trying to get to. It's good to know what we're trying to get to, right? If you're trying to get to an 8-hour day, but if it's not jumping from one extreme to the other right away, because then you're not going to follow through on it. And then you are going to feel bad about it and give up on it completely.
I think I'm getting better at that, but sometimes, like, because of the 8 thing, anything can go to the extreme.
Absolutely.
So that's what I want to do. I want to be like, you need to take this much time off every day and spend this much time reading. And like, it is a lot of paring things back.
Yep.
Like, you're not allowed to do that.
Right. And we all struggle with that, like jumping to the extreme, but I'm sure as a type 8, it's probably even more so. You're like, well, I should just be able to do that today. Like, I should just be able to cut back and only work 8 hours today. But if you're going from 12 hours to 8 hours, like, that's a huge jump. And so that is that giving yourself grace and like the practice of being okay with it just being a little bit better, focusing on that little like better and improvement, as opposed to like being perfect and being not even perfect, but being the extreme.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I have one last little pop-up here, which is notes for each Enneagram type. Oh, let me take this away. And so the 8 one is that you are loved. Awesome. Well, that is going to be it. If you have any other last minute pieces of advice or things that you've discovered that works for you that you want to share?
Don't wait to learn about self-compassion. If you are type 8 and you don't know anything about self-compassion, don't wait to go do that.
I love that. That's a great piece of advice. All right. That is going to be it for this video. If you found it helpful, especially if you're type 8, please give it a thumbs up before you head out. And if you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I do upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you.